This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. And just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Lavelle, as I said, coming up in about 25 or 30 minutes or so. Top 5 at 5 now.
After missing the last 11 games when he ran into Carlos Correa and entered concussion protocol, Byron Buxton is back. He will be playing tonight when the Twins restart their season. They had yesterday off because they had to fly from Tampa all the way up to Seattle. So they've got the Mariners tonight. Your guy Zebby on the mound for the Twins. And another one of your guys, Carson McCasker, has been sent back to AAA St. Paul to make room for Byron Buxton tonight. So we think Wallner.
Big tall guy, right? The 6'8" kid
Your guy.
we're talking about with
Rocco.
With Gleeman and Rocco, yeah.
It sounds like Wallner, if not back soon, pretty quickly. And so the whole band's getting back together here for the Mariners series.
That's good, right? That's exactly what the Wolves.
They're done.
They're done. There's no game 6
We're not
tonight.
at the cage.
No, that's exactly right. That's what the Twins are looking for here. We've all, I think, had our brows furrowed by the comment from Royce Lewis, basically saying,
I've given up.
There's no hope, which is stunning. I mean, that's the kind of lack of bravado that we never hear. I have to believe deep down players are vulnerable like anybody else and that they have moments where that's how they feel, but they're sort of coached and managed into, don't let them think you're getting to them. No, you can never acknowledge whatever your fears might be. But it is a concerning comment from a player who continues to, relatively speaking, struggle, who finished badly last year. He's got the dual thing of he's not hitting and he's been hurt a lot. And again, if you sort of put this whole thing together, the blueprint, right? It was, well, we know we got Correa and we hope we got Buxton and now he's back, but we need more. You need, even if they're both going good, we need somebody younger. We need somebody who might be the new straw that stirs the drink. And that's exactly how much presence we felt originally that this kid had. And now he's apparently stripped all of all of his self-confidence. And we're left to wonder what he really is going to be capable of becoming the rest of his career. A guy who was viewed in the front end as the be-all, end-all, right? A guy who had a chance to be a cornerstone player, and now he's basically surrendering. I don't know how to hit anymore. I don't know what to do.
That's one of those quotes that you want to hear, or at least I want to hear, because it doesn't read very well.
No, that's true.
And he's messing with his stance just essentially because he says, I'm just trying to have some fun, just trying to do something different to see if that maybe snaps you out of it. I'd like to hear that quote somehow, some way. Maybe we will. Twins enter tonight 6 games back of the Tigers for first place in the American League Central. They are tied percentage points wise with the Cleveland Guardians. The Mariners, 30-25 as well, but they're in the American League West and sit atop that division. They are a half game ahead of the Houston Astros. You heard it last night on the Fan. The Edmonton Oilers ran roughshod over the Dallas Stars. They win the series 4-1. They will take on Florida in the Stanley Cup Final. Have you heard about the Pete DeBoer controversy?
No.
Dallas Stars coach Pete DeBoer. Our guy, Minnesota's own Jake Ottinger, gave up 2 goals on 2 shots. Got pulled in pivotal and decisive Game 5. So Pete DeBoer was asked about it, and he's getting some heat for his explanation and just how far he went when talking about his, I guess, former favorite goaltender. Take a listen.
Well, anytime you pull a goalie, there's the reasoning's always to try and spark your group. So that was the number one reason. We had talked endlessly in this series about trying to play with the lead. And obviously we were in a 2-0 hole right away. And you know what? I didn't take that lightly, and I didn't blame it all on Jake. But the reality is if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 to 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 shots on 2 goals in an elimination game. So, it was partly to spark our team and wake them up, and partly, knowing that, status quo had not been working, and that's a pretty big sample size.
Well, so the controversy is
basically he was honest about his goaltender. Yeah, that he hasn't beaten this team enough, and we got sick of it.
Well, I think part of me says at some point the truth cannot be controversial. That if the collective weight of what he was saying cannot be denied. So, is there that big a distinction between what the facts indicate and what a coach says in sort of just repeating those facts? At some point, I'd say, well, it might hurt some feelings, but everything he laid out is undeniable.
That's true.
Correct?
Yeah.
It's not like a feeling. I had a feeling or something.
The truth cannot be controversial.
To that extent, I would say I don't know that he deserves that much heat. I don't know if he has a reputation for being, throwing players under the bus too much in general, and this is just another example of that. But with all that stuff going on and all those numbers in front of you and all those performances, at some point, it almost sounds like he's stating the obvious. I guess the difference is it's coming from an official a person in an official capacity, as opposed to just perhaps a media jackal.
It's not show friends; it's show business.
Right.
Speaking of show business, I did confirm what you heard during the Ben Gessling interview, that on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, the Vikings did win.
Wow, how about
the
that?
Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Was there a score?
I don't know.
Out of curiosity?
In the show, the Vikings beat the Steelers by 11 points.
11?
I'm sorry, by 12.
12?
Because the background was the show, you may have covered some of this, but the show was titled
The Point Spread?
The System.
Okay.
Ted Baxter revealed he had a system for betting NFL games by taking any underdog by 11 points or more.
Okay.
Because 11 was his lucky number. Lou Grant joins Ted until the Super Bowl when he secretly bet the pair's winnings, $2,000, after wanting to prove his system worked as well as Ted's. In the show, the Vikings beat the Steelers by 12. As the closing credits rolled, Moore did a special voiceover saying that the outcome of the game was fictitious, but told viewers if Minnesota did win, remember you heard it first at WJM. And the next day, the Steelers beat the Vikings. I think the score was 16-6.
It's a low score. Yeah, I think that sounds right. It was like 16-6. I've never heard that before.
No,
I watched that show a lot. I never, being in this market as long as I've been, and you had not heard of it either. You'd think that's something we would have been. Again, that show's been off the air for decades, obviously. But given all the lore involving the Vikings and Super Bowls, you'd think we would have been more familiar with it.
Big one tonight, a game you'll hear on the Lynx channel of your iHeartRadio app. The undefeated 5-0 Minnesota Lynx take on the 4-1 Phoenix Mercury. The tip with Sloan Martin is at 9 o'clock. If you want to watch it, it's part of the national TV package. Friday nights.
Nice.
All national TV on ION. On ION.
ION?
Mm-hmm.
What channel is ION? Do we know? I guess it depends on what package you've got. So you just type it in or you dictate it?
I just hit C on my Xfinity Sports app, and then the number C. They're like A, B, C, D.
Oh, I see.
And any game that's on will show up on the right, and then I can just grab it that way.
I don't even know if I have ION.
I bet you have it.
I probably do somewhere. Yeah. ION, you say.
I bet you have it. But you can always listen to it. Yes.
Right here on the Fan?
Not the doubleheader. There's actually like a million games on tonight. Connecticut, Indiana.
Okay.
New York and Washington. LA and Las Vegas, and then Minnesota and Phoenix, as well as Atlanta and Seattle, all on ION for various parts of the country.
How does Way like being back in the coaching environment, this time as an assistant?
My sources say very much so.
Good.
Very much so.
Does Reeve, well, it's probably better to save this for another time, but does Reeve is she offense defense specialist, or does she just have assistant coaches who do a lot of different things?
Good question. I don't know, because I remember when Jim Pete was on the staff, he was in charge of the post players. Some staffs used to do it that way,
right?
we've got our guards coach, we've got our wings coach, our post coach, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's how we break it up. Some do offense, defense, special teams. I'm not sure.
Well, maybe now we got plenty of time in the semi-abyss. Maybe we try to get her on to see how she's sort of reacclimating to the coaching world now in a very different position.
Loves it. Doesn't play as much tennis anymore, which for me is tough.
We've already had one done as today, but we might have a second one here before we prepare for Lavelle Neal III. It might be one of those where I'm kind of like reading verbatim from a particular piece that caught my attention that might fall under the classification of what a bunch of frauds. Stay tuned. Are you familiar with a writer named Luis Paisano?
I don't think so.
I'm not either, or I wasn't until today. I'm going to read from a column he wrote that I think is fairly timely. Maybe a little late, but not that late. He writes, I was lying out on the beach in Golfe Juan, toes buried in the sand, enjoying one of those rare silent holy moments during the Cannes Film Festival. You're a big Cannes Film Festival guy,
One
aren't
of my
you?
favorites.
No influencers posing in front of sponsored BMWs. No overcooked publicists glaring at you over iPads. No tourists gawking slowly at everyone in a tuxedo. Just sun, salt, and the fleeting illusion that the world hadn't completely lost the plot. And then it appeared. A hulking, glistening monument to ego cut across the horizon. Jeff Bezos' super yacht Koru, slicing through the bay like an onyx scythe. I sat up, squinting through the heat haze, watching it glide toward port. I had no idea yet what fresh hell it heralded, but I was about to find out. Cannes. Sparkling jewel on the French Riviera where aging movie stars cling to relevance. Influencers cosplay as movie stars and billionaires treat the Crozet like a valet stand for their climate crimes, I should say.
Up high, down hard!
And this year, looming just offshore, Koru floated like a luxurious oil slick. A $500 million schooner hovering like Chekhov's yacht, waiting for its entrance cue. Jeff Bezos and fiancée Lauren Sanchez are in town, fresh off her bachelorette party for the Global Gift Gala, where she's set to be honored for her contributions to environmental conservation. You can't script satire like this anymore, not when reality is this cooked. Let's talk about this floating metaphor for hubris. Koru is a 417-foot schooner with its own backup yacht, a shadow vessel that follows behind like a luxury parasite, carrying toys, staff, and, most notably, the helipad. The main yacht is too elegant, too precious to be burdened with such practicalities. Together, the vessels burn through hundreds of gallons of diesel per hour. According to researchers from Indiana University and Oxfam, Bezos' sailing yacht Koru emits approximately 7,154 metric tons of CO2 annually, the equivalent of emissions from around 1,500 average cars. A single transatlantic trip emits about 230 metric tons of CO2, roughly equal to the annual emissions of 50 average cars. You know, the same cars that Lauren Sanchez's Environmental Foundation would like you to give up entirely. And it gets better or worse depending on your tolerance for hypocrisy. Turns out Koru's gleaming deck may be literally illegal. Its signature honey-tone teak, the kind that gleams in billionaire real estate porn and yachting magazines, may have been sourced from Myanmar, am I pronouncing that country right? Under strict EU and U.S. sanctions since a violent 2021 military coup. The teak industry there is notorious for deforestation, forced labor, and enriching the very junta those sanctions are trying to weaken. The wood for Koru's deck was supplied by a German partner, the furniture interior finishes through a Turkish firm. Oceanco now says it's impossible to trace the origins of the teak, a claim as convenient as it is damning. In other words, Bezos, the richest man alive, might be sailing on wood harvested in defiance of international sanctions, wood that helped finance a dictatorship. So let's just take stock. A $500 million mega yacht, burning diesel and lined with possibly illicit teak, floating into the Riviera, into the Riviera, so its passenger can be honored for protecting the environment. We are, indeed, through the looking glass. The yacht never even docked, didn't need to. Its presence was felt, looming offshore like a passive-aggressive X. And as Koru lingered, massive, menacing, and somehow smug, became clear the week's most absurd plot twist wasn't even on land yet. Back on shore, Ava Longoria and her global gift gala are getting ready to roll out the champagne, and Lauren Sanchez, bronzed and beaming, is about to receive her green halo on the 19th. That obviously already took place. It's the kind of event where rich people applaud each other for caring, where the vibe is sustainable luxury, and the carbon footprint is politely ignored. That's kind of like giving Elon Musk a humanitarian award or inviting Kim Kardashian to speak on wealth inequality. Look, Lauren Sanchez is a lot of things. Emmy award-winning news anchor, helicopter pilot, woman who permanently looks like she's been freshly glazed, but climate activist? I'm going to need to see some receipts. And no, not just the NetJets ones. In Cannes, the only thing more inflated than the yachts is the self-regard. To her credit, Sanchez has made gestures towards climate work. She's vice chair of the Bezos Earth Fund. It's funded by Jeff's spare change, $10 billion over 10 years, about 7% of his net worth. But even good intentions buckle under the weight of bad optics. You can't ride in on a carbon-belching sea fortress and accept award for climate advocacy. That's like setting a forest fire and accepting a plaque for your marshmallow roasting technique. It goes on from there. It's an outstanding piece.
Very good writing.
Very well done.
Did you mention the support vessel?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because I got...
That has the helipad.
Yeah, I was looking...
You got to have a helipad.
Well, yeah, mostly because this thing can't dock. And there's no room on the main vessel because we got to have other toys on the main vessel. So we bring the second vessel so that the helicopter can land on that and not spoil all the aesthetics of the main yacht. That's hilarious because I lost myself in pictures of Koru. So I didn't hear everything that you read, but to me, the best part is the shadow vessel. That you have your own boat, but you can't just sail that on your own. You need the support vessel.
Owning a yacht like this, he concludes, isn't just tone deaf. It's aggressively symbolic of a class that believes they're not just above the law, they're above the weather. While the rest of us are told to compost, buy reusable straws, and take fewer showers during droughts, the world's richest man floats into Cannes on a floating diesel inferno and gets a seat at the climate table via his fiance's perfectly bronzed décolleté. And here's what makes it all worse. This isn't even accidental. The irony is the point. It's not that Bezos and Sanchez are oblivious. It's that they've calculated no one will care. And judging by the fawning press coverage and yacht thirst traps clogging Instagram, they're probably right. We're not just in the era of the billionaire. We're in the era of billionaire moral cosplay, where obscene wealth and performative wokeness coexist without contradiction. 1 minute, you're flying to space to see Earth's fragility. The next, you're launching rockets, torching oceans, and parking your teak-lined gilt barge off the coast of Cannes to go applaud your fiancé.
Gilt barge.
For saving the planet. This guy is absolutely brilliant. That might be the best line. You may have identified right there the best line in it. Gilt barge. Does it get any better?
I'd love a gilt barge.
Than a gilt barge? And look, we can debate.
Maybe Mace can let us on his gilt barge.
See, this is a different level. Like, I know historically people like, oh, you're all flying your private jets in.
Right.
And I actually am not as offended by that as others because I say, all right, well, in the grand scheme of things, maybe there's advantages because you're still doing better work, or but But to me, if you want to try to defend that as hard as it is to do, when you're talking about this kind of obscenity, which again, it's his business. It's not, I'm not telling him he can't do it, but I'm telling him and everybody else that this writer has nailed it. That how does anybody with a straight face think they can be taken seriously when they arrive in that sort of opulence? Isn't even the right word. I don't even know the word is. It's unprecedented. It's a level above opulence. How are you taken seriously and you're patted on the back and, oh, we're so happy for you. It's such a world that is separated from reality that it is a reminder that these folks, many of them, it goes back to the lecture that the comedian guy made before he hosted the Golden Globes.
Ricky Gervais.
It all is connected to that, to the Ricky Gervais thing. You people have no idea how the real world works. You're in no place to lecture on anything. And maybe the out is, well, look how much money he pays. If he's donating, $10 billion a year, that's his own way of, but it's just, it's too good. And it was too well written for me to ignore even on this Friday afternoon. Let's take a pause. Let's take a quick pause and prepare for a true man of opulence, Lavelle E. Neal III. We'll find out if he has how much boat time he's had in his life, and has he ever been on a luxury yacht, anything like that of Mr. Jeff Bezos. All of that with Lavelle, maybe even a little toy department talk next.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Allery's Bar and Barbecue, downtown St. Paul, brings us Lavelle E. Neal III. Questions for him, observations. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, as always, is available to you if you're lucky enough not to have been blocked. 646-86. That's 646-86. How are you, Lavelle?
All is well, my friend. I hope all is well with you and your family.
Yeah, well, it's, we're doing okay. I think I'm worried about you, though, a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
In what way?
Well, the obvious way. You were doing a lot of coughing last week. I want to be sure you don't have, like, bronchitis or something. Or is it just, is that what the stogies can do to you from time to time?
I have not coughed once today. Now, watch it start up during this segment, and then we'll have to try to draw parallels with that.
Might be psychosomatic at that point, yeah.
No, I've been outdoors all day, enjoying this Canadian smoke-infested atmosphere.
That might cause the coughing, you're right.
To play golf today. So, yeah, you can see the haze now.
How'd you hit him today?
It was frustrating because I actually made some adjustments off the tee, and I only missed one fairway in the front nine.
Nice.
I made an adjustment with my irons. I was actually getting more loft on the ball. And just when I was thinking, okay, now maybe I can start trying to focus on, like, having good holes instead of just hitting the ball and smoking cigars, then I just fell apart on the back nine. It was just disgusting.
Do you think on the basis of your experiences, you might be able to help out Royce Lewis?
If he could, maybe he needs to walk up to the plate puffing on a cigar. It will relax him. It will soothe him. It'll give him a little buzz. Maybe that'll help him connect. I read that quote too about there is no hope anymore. So that was a little distressing to read. But he's hit a couple balls hard during this drought. Though he had a home run taken away from him in Milwaukee. I think he hit another ball hard to the opposite field in Tampa Bay. So it hasn't just been totally brutal. He just has nothing to show for the moments he's actually squared up the ball. So I imagine that's going to be frustrating for him. Maybe he needs to just bunt for a hit just to break the slump. Guys I've covered through the years who've been through this, the ones who were successful at breaking through slumps eventually usually say, you know what, when I start hitting it, people are going to pay for this. Pitchers are going to pay. So they try to keep the optimistic tone. So Royce likes to talk. He likes to give you original thoughts and quips and quotes. But saying that he's lost hope. I hope someone mentioned that it's not good being quoted like you're sounding like you've just been defeated by by the pitcher on the mound here. He can. All he needs is a couple of hits, and he'll take the turn.
Well, Gaardsy asked during the top 5 at 5 when I brought that up. Something effective. I'd like to actually hear him say it, whether there's some context missed. And a texter had said that if you listen to the entire interview, that you'd come to a different conclusion than what that quote sounds like when you just hear those words. Now, I read that quote originally in a Gleeman piece. I've read them several places since then, so I don't know if the larger context is he's kind of doing gallows humor there or what it is. I'm not exactly sure, but people are suggesting that there was a little bit more to, that it's not quite as dire as it sounds in terms of a concession speech as that particular quote indicates. So I don't know what to believe at this point.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of all that. So that would definitely shed a different type of light on the situation. And maybe he likes being self-deprecating at times. And maybe that's part of his process for dealing with failure, which, happens a lot in baseball. So, and here's the thing, too. All he needs is a couple of hits. I believe the average Major League Baseball batting average is now 240, 247, something like that. So all he has to do is get like one hit in the game. He's hitting 250 on that day, and he's winning. Yeah. And that's how you start stacking, successful days and getting into a hitting streak. So, like I said, he's had good at-bats. He's hit some balls hard. He hasn't been totally anemic at the plate. And he's got to remind himself of that as he moves forward here.
Buck has been activated, as we mentioned during the top 5 at 5, which I think we'll all agree is encouraging news. I guess, the issue on concussions is always the issue. You can come back, you can be activated, but are you the same guy? Does it have a lingering effect? Because we've learned so much more about concussions over the years than we once did that I guess you can't necessarily claim victory, right, until he's out there for a while and you see how he's performing.
Yeah, unfortunately, this market has had experience with watching its heroes suffer from concussions. Joe Mauer's career was altered by a concussion. He ended up moving to first base for the final 5 years of his career. Justin Morneau went from a power-hitting middle of the order force pre-concussion to being just a slap-hitting, singles guy.
Yeah.
Who hit for a decent average, but wasn't the player he wanted to be, post-concussion. I talked to him about that. I asked him, because I think he ended up winning a batting title with Colorado, and I said, do you feel like that's a first look or no? You've come all the way back from this. He said, no, because I am not the guy I want to be. I want to be the guy that wants to bat fourth. I want to be the guy that wants to hit home runs, driving a lot of runs, and be the person who people can rely on to produce runs. And that's not the player I am now. That's not the player I was with Colorado. And it was sad to hear that, but it was true. So, and the thing about Buck is this either is his second or third concussion. It never was officially confirmed in 2020 when he couldn't play that last game against Houston. Was that because of a concussion, or was another migraine? He did have a concussion in Double-A, because I remember Terry Ryan was at the stadium and actually rode with him to the hospital in the ambulance. He collided chasing the ball in the outfield with Mike Bosnicka, who was a former Gopher player, and he had to go take it to the hospital. I believe that was definitely concussion number one. I don't know if the 2020 was number two or just another migraine. He also had a migraine in 2018 when the Twins in Cleveland played in Puerto Rico, because I was there when all of a sudden he didn't start feeling well, and the next thing you know, the next day he's got a concussion. I mean, he's got a migraine, and they had to deal with that. So you got to be careful, but as long as we got to watch if he's feeling good, if he's seeing the ball well, and if he's squaring up balls like he was before the episode happened. So, you're glad to hear that he's back on the field. You just hope that he's back to what he was before, he collided with Correa.
Are you in a hurry?
Not really.
Good. I want you then to stop whatever you're doing and listen to a piece of sound that Gaardsy has gleaned from the manager, the manager of the Minnesota Twins, Rocco Baldelli. Let's all listen.
He's been the fire in a lot of ways that has gotten us through this stretch where we've been missing a lot of players, guys that produce in our lineup, and he's stepped right in and grabbed at-bats, taken over some games. He's won games for us. Today was another great example of the way he's been playing. It's not the first game he's played like that. He's doing it on a pretty regular basis right now. So everything he's been doing, it's been huge.
What do you think?
That had to be Cody Clemens.
Ding.
Who else?
Ding.
Who else could it be?
I'm going to give you another
the
chance.
MVP of the first half of the season.
I'm going to give you another chance to Sirwanga to backpedal out of it. I mean, you're going to run out of chances pretty soon when he's in the running for MVP in the league.
I've made more controversial comments through the years than predicting Corey Clemens is going to crash down to earth. It's going to happen. His body of work says that this cannot last. Now, fortunately for Cody, he's in a situation where he's been able to play a lot. He's been able to get his bat hot, and he's been able to connect. Let's see if he can continue this, because now he's going to make pitchers pay more attention to him. He's going to make scouting reports be a little more detailed about him. Let's see how he gets through the next step here. He's been living large, no doubt. I know you've noted him as MVP of the 13-game winning streak. He's had a great run. Let's see if he can continue it before I offer any mea culpas or start throwing flowers in his direction. This guy was picked up off waivers, wasn't he? Or something like that?
All he needed was a chance.
He was
That's all you need sometimes is one team
with
to
a
believe
couple
in
other
you.
organizations that it has not clicked. Now, what he's doing now is great, and the Twins definitely needed it. And he's been an integral part of how they've been successful over the last few weeks.
Do you know who else?
But I just, based on his body of work, I have my doubts that this is going to last.
Do you know who else was once put on waivers?
Who?
Chris Carter. How'd that work out?
Oh, you talking about the wide receiver? I was hoping not the Oakland A's slugger.
No, Chris Carter, Vikings receiver, Hall of Famer, put on waivers. How'd that work out?
What did Buddy Ryan say about Chris Carter?
He didn't like him. He took a lot of shots at him, that's for sure.
It was something, a trader for a bag of footballs or something. Didn't he have like a comment to that ilk?
Would you say what you said to us to Roger Clemens' face?
To Roger Clemens, if I was talking to Rocket, I was like, well, for your sake, I hope your son can continue it. He's got a great opportunity now. I hope he runs with it. That's what I would tell him. Why do we wound up with me trying to get facial with Roger Clemens about his son?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out if you'd be quite as bold and declarative if you have to say it directly to Dad.
I wouldn't say that to anybody's father.
Oh, all right.
Let alone that it's Roger Clemens the Rocket. Hello? Let it play out. That's what I'm saying. Let it play out. Let's see how long he can ride this wave.
That's okay to enjoy the moment.
We're watching for it. We're monitoring. We've been waiting for the last month for the wave.
He's living large. As I said, he is living large. He deserves, credit for what he's done. But I still think that, based on his track record, that there's going to be a correction.
What do you want from A-Rod and Mark Laurie?
I want them to make sure Tim Connolly has everything he needs in order to put this roster in a position to win a title. In terms of signing, adding on to pay players, not being afraid of the apron, because Glenn Taylor wasn't afraid of paying luxury tax. The indications were a year ago they wanted to cut payroll because of the apron and the luxury tax. I want them to come in, and when I talked to A-Rod the day this whole layaway plan was announced, I talked to him about their ambitions. He's like, well, we want to do everything first class, right? That means first class in terms of player procurement, signing, trading, and drafting. That's what I want to see happen under their reign.
From your perspective, how much did the Game 5 yellow-bellied pig-like performance tarnish? I may be kind of, setting up here, but tarnish what, again, overall has to be viewed as a pretty successful season, at least returning to the NBA's version of the Final Four in the NBA tournament. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a successful season, but the way they lost, the way they capitulated, it was just rough to see because these games were no contest. The games they lost, it was just NC, no contest. And the the fact that this Thunder team is young and has a boatload of picks over the next several years. They look like they're in a position to rule the Western Conference for a long time, and you got to start figuring out ways to combat this. You know, you got to figure out ways to keep up with the Thunder and make your roster as strong as possible. It does take. It's unfortunate. It does take away from what a good season it was, especially when we had our doubts at midseason and at the All-Star break. But then things started clicking with that 17-4 run in the regular season. And how, they slayed LeBron, and then they slayed Luka, and then they slayed Steph Curry, although Curry didn't play in the last couple games, to get to this point. So, but they got to challenge the throne, and they got to do all they can to try to go toe-to-toe with the Thunder.
Do you want Julius Randle back?
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question.
And a hard one. It's a tough one.
It is because, well, here's the thing. I think you and I discussed, we were kind of not in love with him at the beginning of the year because it wasn't clicking. And here's the thing, and I kind of touched on it in my column, is that when you have Rudy Gobert and you have Jaden McDaniels in the start lineup, those other three spots got to score. They got to score. And it looked at times that because Randall was trying to fit in, that it was like the only thing going, the only option, So if they're unable to retain Julius Randle, they definitely have to find someone who can put the ball in the basket. And as much as I cringe at it, I keep this Kevin Durant thing's going to be looming like a specter over this whole situation as a potential option. It just seems like someone like Durant, who I think is 37 years old, but my goodness, he averaged 26 points a game. They certainly would look nice in the Wolves setup. I'm predicting that Randle opts out in hopes that he can sign a long-term deal with the Wolves, and we'll see how that goes. And then if that doesn't work, then they're going to do something drastic to get another scorer in here, and they got to figure out a way to get more scoring from the point guard position, whether it's from Rob Dillingham or bringing in another point guard. Waiting for Jaden McDaniels to develop offensively, it's still a wait. He averaged 12.1 points a game during the regular season. We'd like to see more from him. Definitely got to see more of Terrence Shannon in rotation, so maybe you can get a little more offense that way. And then we don't know what's going to happen with the Naz Reid situation. Naz talks about coming back, but it sounds like he's infatuated with the spot he's in terms of being courted by other teams and being wooed and checking out different cities and having fancy meals and having discussions on yachts and country clubs about playing for his teams. And, so he could become smitten with one of his suitors, and that could be the end of Naz Reid, and what did the Wolves do then? So I'm going to say right now, based on the other layers that are involved, it would be probably best for the Wolves to bring Julius Randle back and to accept him back if he wants to play. Just because they got some other things in the to-do list they need to be taken care of.
Well, here's what I would like better, and it might be a pipe dream because this all kind of on the Durant discussion depends on whether the Wolves have the kind of assets that would make them an attractive trade partner from the Phoenix standpoint or not. But to me, what makes more sense is you punt on Randle, you pay Naz, you start Naz, and then you at the 4, and then you obviously next to Rudy, and then you bring in Durant. As Sam Mitchell said with us yesterday, if you're going to bring Durant in, you got to play him at the 3 because he does not at this point in his career. He doesn't know how to fight the big bodies inside. He still can score, but then you're back to what do you have to give up? I think Durant should that option should be absolutely explored. I know it was intensively explored before the trade deadline, but it was too complicated to get done there. So I think you got to explore it. And I do also think you've got to explore a change at point guard. And that means Conley off the bench, because I always want him on my team. But it's and if Dillingham's not ready, because he's the heir apparent there, but I don't know if he played enough this year to say you can give him the keys. Then you probably got to go and try to find another inexpensive veteran who's just got good moxie and maybe a little bit more scoring than Conley at this point, maybe a little younger. and then you have Dillingham as your first guy off the bench. Because in this environment, then it's unlikely that Nikhil is going to be back either.
Right. My thing, too, about this Durant thing, the Wolves going to be taking on a large salary for Kevin Durant, correct?
Yes.
Right? So that should affect how much they have to give up in terms of capital. I can see Jay McDaniels be part of that process and a couple of number one picks, but this should not be like a Gobert trade or whatever Presti pulled off with trading with the LA Clippers or whatever, because they're taking on a significant amount of salary, and for someone who's going to be 37 next season.
Correct.
So this shouldn't be it will be an eye opener, but it shouldn't be a blockbuster.
Let me finish up with a text that came in a little while ago. It's a good one. This is from 414 guy. 414 guy. And he writes, Milwaukee. I think that is Milwaukee. Right? Could be the Dells, too. Here's what he writes. I was listening to talk the other day with a New York writer, that was Kevin Kernan, who we had on yesterday, about Lavelle's laundry episode in China. My wife and I traveled.
What, that came up?
Did that come up with Kernan, or did that come up separate? I don't remember. That didn't come up with Kernan, did it?
Kernan, no.
No, it came up in some other context, but it wasn't with Kernan, I don't think.
It was with Louis.
That's right, it was with Louis.
It was with Louis because we were talking about his international trip.
Here's what he writes. My wife and I traveled to China some years ago to adopt my oldest daughter. We tried Lavelle's underwear technique, attempting to leave some old clothes in the trash in our hotel room. We were waiting in the lobby for our cab when a front desk worker waved us over. He said the room cleaning crew found our clothes and wanted to return them to us.
Hello?
Didn't know how to tell them that we didn't want the clothes, so we just stuffed them in our suitcase and took them home.
God.
Imagine if that would have happened to you with your underwear. That would have been kind of embarrassing at the front desk, wouldn't it?
Well, let's remember one thing. This is during COVID, so I don't think there would have been that much of an effort to return the clothes to me.
That's true.
I think they would have been in just whatever's in that garbage can is getting put in a giant bag, and I'm wearing this hazmat outfit, and we're going to throw it out. I don't think that would have been. I don't see how that could have been an issue with this trip. I actually think the discarding the underwear bit is actually an effective way of creating space during your trip for some of the bells and whistles and gifts you're going to bring back. Because in place of those areas, and I've got to admit my underwear are bigger than other people's underwear. That leaves enough space for me to put gifts in and things I can take back to the United States.
If you have a 30-inch waist, the underwear trick's not going to help you.
Yeah, that's true. That's just.
It is a good trick, though, especially for a 3-week trip.
Are you jockey guy? You boxers?
Let's not follow up.
What is your underwear of choice, or has it evolved?
You don't have to answer.
I'm kind of a boxer brief guy.
Boxer brief, combo platter. Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
It's pretty standard.
Boxer brief has now become pretty standard, and it wasn't a long time ago. I've never understood boxers ever. Never had an understanding.
Heath is going to rip us now because he does that commercial for the whatever boys.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Do you have a Sunday column in the hopper yet?
No, I'm covering USA China tomorrow at Allianz Field, and that's going to be my Sunday contribution. So, Emma Hayes and the national team are in town this week to play China, and you raise an eyebrow that China is actually traveling here in the United States, but they're here. So I stopped before I golfed today. I stopped by Media Access just to kind of listen in on some things. So
nice.
It'll be pretty cool. It's always cool to have a national team play.
What kind of crowd? Here. What kind of crowd are we going to have?
I haven't asked. I don't know if it's going to be a sellout, but I'm sure it'll get the 5 figures for sure.
Yeah, I would hope so. Weather's, I think, it's supposed to be warm, right? But I don't think rain. I think it's just supposed to be kind of a dry heat coming in, and we're, I think, going to approach 90. Is it by Monday? Monday or Tuesday, I think we're supposed to
Yes, that's right. 90. It's supposed to be about 84. It's supposed to be 84 today, but I think they fell a few degrees short. It's supposed to be 84 tomorrow, and then by Monday, it's supposed to be 91, which means I'm going to die because I'm also scheduled to play in Randy Shaver's charity golf event at Rush Creek on Monday.
That's right.
When it's going to be 91 degrees. So I got to hydrate.
There you definitely hydrate.
Are you morning or afternoon, Lavelle?
Afternoon, man. I can't get up there early for the morning crew. And then if it rains overnight, then the morning group gets screwed over. So I'm afternoon.
Will you wear a hat?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to wear a hat.
That's good. I have a hat on now.
Good for you. That's very important. And then, you understand hydration's important too?
Absolutely.
TV people love to tell us how important hydration is, including Lori Fisher. Every 5 minutes. And don't forget it. People forget. They got to be reminded sometimes because we're all idiots.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Lori hydrated or just overstimulated at times?
Well, kind of at different times, different answers to that. Depends on whether it's the grocery store bagger that's involved. That's an inside joke for later. Your quote of the day, because every week when you're on, there's usually a quote that's going to stick with you for a while. And it's been offered up here by Mike from Chaska. Quote, "My underwear are bigger than most people's," end quote. That's
put that on your Twitter profile.
That's just too good. That's just absolutely too good. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
That wasn't planned. That was totally organic. It just happened off the cuff.
That's the beauty
Hold
of
on,
it.
not to be confused when somehow manscaping came up on the show and the quote was, "There's a lot going on down there." that was a rough one.
Manscaping came up during golf today. I wish I could tell you that story.
Oh,
Please
God,
don't.
I would rather.
I blame myself for bringing it up.
Yeah, see, that's it. You whip me and you do it.
That's on me. Full pelf.
Although, fairness in savagery and also puffery, the Gaardsy, the line that you laughed at the hardest during this segment was actually offered up by Gaardsy, whispering in my ear regarding
the Royce Lewis adjustments.
Yeah, that was his line, but he's selfless enough to give it to me to pass along to you,
Rubio,
rather than just blurt it out loud and get proper credit. So, in fairness, I got to give him credit now.
Believe.
That's our alignment right there.
That's well played. Have a wonderful weekend, my friend. Enjoy the soccer tomorrow. We'll chat next week.
All right, take care.
Lavelle Neal III. We talk about, we've got I'm biased, I'll admit, a tremendous array of guests in the hopper, right? Over the years, over the decades, I think. Some really outstanding contributors. And the beauty of it is, each one of them, I think it's fair to say, brings something different. And I don't know if I could even convey everything that Lavelle brings, but is it fair to say that as much as anything, he brings a smile? Lavelle brings a smile, a moment that you can't expect, you don't know where it's going to come from, but you're going to chuckle, right? Or you're going to be on the road smiling ear to ear and just shaking your head and going, where did that come from? But that's part of what he provides. It's part of why we love having Lavelle Neal III on this show.
Life is better with Lavelle around.
Dan Minnesota wants a refresher on Lavelle's underwear caper because he's trying to recall exactly why, when he went to the Olympics in China, he had to throw them away. Now, my recollection is it was as simple as, I got extra stuff I bought. People want souvenirs, they want shirts, whatever, and I was out of room. So I just figured, why, there's just underwear, for God's sake. I'll just throw the underwear away. I don't need to bring back the underwear. Was that it, or am I missing something?
You're very close. It wasn't reactionary. It was like Kwesi. It was proactive thinking, not reactive thinking. It was a tip, I believe, from Rachel Blunt, his Star Tribune Olympic veteran colleague, that gave him the tip on the front end to do it that way. That you're going to be gone for 3-4 weeks.
I see.
You're going to want to bring stuff back with you. Bring old underwear to wear it, and then just get rid of it. So it wasn't that he reacted to it that way. It was planned that's how he did it.
I don't think I ever did that during an Olympics. I think I found a way to fit everything. Or maybe the other trick is to bring an extra bag. But that's unwieldy sometimes, or maybe that's impossible, but that's another way to go. Tom from Columbia Heights writes, loves Gaardsy trying to keep it highbrow by telling Lavelle to ignore the underwear question, but then cycling back to manscaping. Yeah, that is a bit
I am a fraud on that. Can I offer something up for seal of approval?
Of course. Yeah.
Our guy Kyle Potter, have you seen what he's been up to this week?
I put it under the classification of changing lives. I want to take credit for this.
Do you really?
Is that unfair? For Kyle Potter's emerging on the national media scene?
Well, and because he broke the story that Delta and other airlines essentially, I'm going to nuts and bolts this thing, essentially has just started charging solo travelers more.
Correct.
And not doing it very quietly. And he discovered it with Thrifty Traveler and thriftytraveler.com. It blew up. He was on CNN last night.
Correct.
And he just posted a story within the last couple of hours that after blowback, Delta dumps fares that punish solo travelers. How about that?
That's outstanding. That's good work.
I mean, that's reporting.
Seal of approval.
And staying on their asses. American and United apparently did it too.
You're suggesting that that a bigger reason that he's had some national media opportunities might be that he broke a hell of a transportation story rather than the number of times he's been on bumper to bumper.
That part, yes, but
I can't deny it.
He wouldn't have been as good a guest if not for all the reps that we
gave.
There it is. So we'll take credit for it that way.
That's a good angle. That sounds a little less egotistical
Jeff Bezos
than what
humility.
I was trying to go with.
Jeff Bezos
which was
humility.
the only reason CNN discovered him. They're podcasting bumper to bumper. Now, that's a hell of a story.
Just to break it, and I mean that's big time.
That's big time. And then to get them to do the Sawanga backpedal basically within 24 hours, right?
Yeah,
that's good work.
That's
man.
awesome.
That's good work, Kyle Potter. Good for him. And again, we're not surprised. We've loved having him on. How many years have we had him on? Been a long time.
7, 8, 9. Yeah, it's been a long time.
There's no question.
But I love when our friends do big things.
That's extremely good work. Well, I don't know if we have enough time to delve too deep into this. I'll give you the miniaturized version though, because I'd like to try to squeeze it in before the weekend ends. I'm looking at a number of tweets, but one kind of captures the essence of several of the others. Today should have been a happy day. I finally got my PhD from MIT. With my 5-year-old twins, my 2-year-old, and my parents, who are children of Holocaust survivors, traveling halfway around the world just to be there. Instead, MIT's student commencement speaker decided it was appropriate to use the moment for hate-filled rhetoric against Israelis and Jews. And it wasn't just one person. Too many in the crowd erupted with cheers and anger. My kids might not have understood every word, but they felt the fear and hostility and kept asking questions from that point on. It was distressing for them, upsetting for us, and deeply distasteful for everyone else who came to celebrate. This is even more heartbreaking considering that just last week, a beautiful Jewish American couple was murdered in D.C. Shame on MIT for allowing hate and division to overshadow a day meant for celebration. So I have no idea what was in the speech. But here's where this falls under I think it all depends on whose ox is being gored classification of story. If you, for example, I think Governor Walz said it was at a commencement at the University of Minnesota. I think it might have been, was it the business school?
I think it was
the
law
grad school, law school, whatever.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I'm going to make this, I know we're not supposed to go political and stuff like this, but I don't, I pretty much feel like that's what I'm going to do and why that I need to. Here's how we tend to, this is my problem with the discourse on what's okay when you're giving a commencement speech, right? If, generally speaking, you agree with the analysis and opinion, the political opinion that's being uttered, you go, you know what? Good for you, man. Sometimes you got to hear this stuff, and if it's uncomfortable, then you're making people uncomfortable and they just have to deal with it. But would you feel the same way if you fundamentally disagreed with the position that was being offered? If somebody got up there and said, I got to tell you, I know this is a minority opinion here, but I think this Trump guy gets ripped too often, or I think people are over the top insane about how bitter they get about this policy, or somebody gets up there and says, the stuff that's going on the border, thank God we finally have a president who's closing our border. Would those same people who are applauding, in some cases, would they applaud that? Now, if they can honestly say they would, they'd say, I don't agree with it, but I have to defend that person's right to that viewpoint? Or would it be, you made a lot of people uncomfortable with it? And I can see, if you're in the audience at MIT and you're the children of, your parents are children of Holocaust survivors, I can see you saying, what the hell's going on here? Regardless of whatever position you might have on the Palestinian question and even Israeli policy, because there's plenty to discuss. And that to me that's the conversation that we need to have that we don't. Because you're either in or you're not on making people uncomfortable. And I think there's a great number of people, Sharks and Jets, who are not consistent on that issue. On good, if it makes you feel uncomfortable. But if it was people you don't think should feel uncomfortable, would you say that same thing? And if it's a commencement speech, and as I said, you happen to have the background that this individual and several others did, chances are you're going to say, now? This? Today? Who gets to have that sort of jurisdiction over it? And if you can honestly say, I'll accept it no matter what comes out of the person's mouth. Somebody comes up and says, I got to tell you, this university's DEI loyalty oaths offend me. They bother me. They're not the right way to go about putting in place equitable policy. It's not real freedom if you are judged and forced to offer up loyalty pleas if you are a member of the faculty at this university, or if you're a student at this university and you feel that not all of these policies really serve the greater good or should be implemented at all. Would you be okay with that? Especially if some students who believe in those DEI policies will say, this is offensive to me. This isn't what I want to hear on my graduation. How dare you? We're not consistent on this issue at all. We tend to nod our head and say, go for it. Don't be afraid to say what other people are believing, but aren't sure that they're willing to do it in this environment. Let's be honest, we tend to do that applauding and that encouraging when we agree with the sentiment that's out there. That's not the test. The test is if it's something that is going to make you uncomfortable or you don't agree with, and you say, well, that's not very even-handed on that discussion. That's not very fair on that particular debate. There's a lot more to that story on that debate. No, we're not. And so that's why these debates, we have them every year because these kinds of stories emerge. This seemed to be one of the worst examples that I've seen there. But again, I don't know how incendiary the rhetoric was, how far it went in this case. And I'm not even here to say that the student should have been censored. It doesn't have a right to say what he or she intended to say. But the consistency should be, you can't only lose your mind when you disagree with the sentiment that's offered and say that's going too far. Who gets to decide? If you open the door to policy discussions at a commencement address involving Israelis and Jews, then you better be consistent with it. Or you better say, maybe we need to take a long, hard look at this. This is why a lot of schools themselves have finally, I think, seen the light and said, we're not going to feel obligated to weigh in on every issue. Because not everybody agrees on every issue. And then we run that risk of creating an environment in which not every opinion is allowed to be voiced. People start getting afraid of what they're allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say. Let's wrap up the program with a quick look back at what you missed earlier in the show. That's next.
Show wrap presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Outstanding array of guests today. Not to mention great contributions from the audience. Dr. Dan's inbox was opened about 3:40 or so. We appreciate all the help there. If you're interested in podcasting, you'll be able to hear that at some point over the weekend. Or as soon as this show is done, as Gaardsy puts that in place. In addition, Ben Gessling on the Vikings, both really the big two when it comes to the leadership power structure in the Vikings organization, honored in different ways to certain degrees today. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is honored with a contract extension. That was announced early. We talked about that. And we heard just really before Ben Gessling appeared with us at 4:30 that the other guy in the power structure, the head coach Kevin O'Connell, gets a big shot media working with the media award. First time in the history of the award that a member of the Minnesota Vikings organization at any level,
Excuse me?
coach, player, general manager, front office big shot, has ever been honored with this particular prestige.
My sources tell me the momentum for that award really started when he brought you the water at
That could have
training
been it,
camp
the
last
opening
year.
salvo right
Yes.
there, yeah.
Most people said, we got to get this guy this award.
Nevertheless, I still kind of miss Mike Zimmer in a way.
Oh, yeah.
It's just because that crustiness was actually kind of fun. Fan on Demand tonight, then Dan Patrick. And then don't forget your Minnesota Lynx take on Phoenix. Try to stay undefeated. The roar for 44 continues tonight on the Lynx channel.
9 o'clock.
Via the iHeartRadio app. Enough said. 7:30 Fox 9 Plus and at 10:30 on Fox 9. We hope you listen. Thank you for listening today, and I hope you watch as well. I will talk to you Sunday at 9 a.m.
A lot of things that are easily correctable.